total rebounds of 11.8. And Shaquille O'Neal, absolutely dominant. 24.1 points, efficient field goal percentage. This is insane. 58.4, 2.2 blocks, and a field goal percentage of 58.4. How bad was his free throw percentage? Pretty darn bad, 51.5. While each of those player stats are clearly a bit superior to O'Neal's, it's surprising to see how close he comes up to matching up with them. Shaq and Tim Duncan are top 10 players in the history of the NBA, and Dirk and KG are also considered amongst the best this league has ever seen. O'Neal is second in blocks amongst them with 2.4, just under Duncan's 2.5. The big difference between O'Neal and these four players was sustainability and team success. During this window, Shaq won 3 of his 4 NBA titles, 2 with the Lakers, 1 with the Heat. Duncan won 3 of his 5 titles. Dirk and KG would go on to win a title later in their careers. Also, O'Neal's only real case for the Hall of Fame is his 6 All-Star seasons. Shaq had an 8-year prime going into the 2001 season. Duncan won a championship in 1999, and he was able to develop himself into a championship-level contributor even when he passed his prime, making multiple All-Star, All-NBA, and All-Defensive teams when he was 35-plus years old. KG blossomed an All-Star 5 years prior to 2001 and was an All-Star for 5 of his next 6 seasons in Boston after getting traded by Minnesota in the 2007 offseason. Dirk was just entering his prime around the same time O'Neal was and was able to extend it nearly another decade. To be fair, those 4 are some of the greatest to ever play the game, so just because O'Neal's career didn't play out the same as theirs doesn't mean he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Some of the center/power forward Tier 2 and Tier 3 stars during that time were Ben Wallace, Chris Webber, and Elton Brand. Here's how O'Neal's numbers measure against them. Jermaine O'Neal, once again, 20.4 points per game, efficient field percentage. This is where it kind of hurts him. It's only at 46%, so he wasn't that efficient of a player. Blocks, excellent, 2.4, and then fouls per game, 3.5. For Elton Brand, 20.4 points per game, efficient field goal percentage. It's better than Jermaine O'Neal, 51.5. Free throw percentage, it's still better, 75.2, whereas Jermaine O'Neal was 73.5. How about Chris Webber? Actually, Chris averaged less points per game than Jermaine O'Neal, 19.6. Player fouls, 3. Free throw percentage, 71. Total rebounds, 9.3. So Jermaine O'Neal actually had more rebounds than Chris Webber. For Ben Wallace, not a great offensive player by any stretch of the imagination. Only 7.9 points per game. But here's what hurts Jermaine O'Neal again. 47 efficient field goal percentage, just 46 for Jermaine. Ben Wallace stands out because he had little to no offensive game. He was, however, one of the most prominent centers in the league during that time frame. He was maybe the best defensive center in the league, making every all-defensive team during that stretch with 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He also made 5 All-NBA teams and was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. The more apt comparisons to O'Neal would be Chris Webber and Elton Brand. All 3 have similar stats during this time. 2010 players who thrived in the post, pick and roll and mid-range. Webber, who's now a Hall of Famer, had the better career of the 3. Like O'Neal, he struggled to find his place early in his career, bouncing from the Warriors to the Bullets/Wizards before ultimately landing with the Kings. But despite this situation, Webber still managed to put up all-star level numbers. From 1993 to 2001, he averaged 21.8 points, 10.2 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1.8 blocks, and 1.5 steals, shooting 50% from the field. He was also a couple questionable calls away from making the finals. Elton Brand, who's not in the Hall of Fame, has the most similar career arc to O'Neal. He basically had an 8-year apex from his rookie year in 1999 to 2000 to 2006 to 07. A couple games into the 2007-8 season, he tore his Achilles and was never quite the same player after that. He was an effective role player for the next 5 to 6 seasons, but not the star that he once was. He was in essence the same dilemma as O'Neal when it comes to making a Hall of Fame case. Was he dominant for a long enough time to justify him being inducted? After breaking his career down in full, it's time to answer the big question. Does Jermaine O'Neal belong in the Basketball Hall of Fame? To answer a question with a question, would the Basketball Hall of Fame's legitimacy be in question if Jermaine O'Neal was inducted into it? The answer is no. O'Neal had a fine career, a good career, better than most NBA players and even most athletes can say that they had. At his absolute peak, you could have made the case that he was one of the best 10 to 15 players in the world. But as good as his peak was, it lasted between 3 to 6 seasons, probably closer to 3. The rest of his career was at best a high-end role player, and at worst, injury-prone scrub. The malice at the Palace definitely put a permanent stain on an overall good NBA career, because once again, it's voted by the sports writers, and when you have negative publicity around you, that can follow you when it comes to Hall of Fame voting. But let's be honest, it's not like it's the only thing keeping him from being a Hall of Famer.
No! Close. Number 92, Reynolds Anoya. Number 20, Porfirio Lobo. Number 13, Caio Cacheto. Number 3, Enrique Cruz. Number 4, Hayden Martin. Number 5, Lance Davenport. Number 11, Gustavo Diaz. Number 8, Leonardo Mendez. Number 64, Eduardo Santos. Number 10, Joao Neves. Number 9, Kaiken Chivaletto. And now the starting 11 for Chicago City. In goal, number 1, Alex Flores. Number 2, Ryan Quintos. Number 3, Julian Cineros. Number 4, Juan Gutierrez. Number 5, Matthew Sinano.
So we're right. Antonio.
Number 6,
Antonio said number 1.
Axel Alejandro.
Oh, he did FC Wichita first.
Number 8, Andrew Schreiner. Number 10, Blaine Maybe.
Maybe.
Number 7, AJ Franklin.
Did we change numbers?
Number 11,
I said it.
Hagen.
We technically
Number
changed
9,
numbers, but we also
Morning.
Are these our numbers?
Number 18, Dylan Banker.
I was about to...
Number 6, Andrew Check.
Because he's saying numbers aren't even there.
Okay, but mine are right. Okay. Because that's kind of important that mine are right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then you're changing yours, right? Cause
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, but you have ours, correct?
Right, this is what I have. This is...
Oh, okay.
I'll have it right in the middle. Okay, here we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another production of SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone. It's 7:02 p.m., which means, Austin, it's about some time for some USL 2 men's soccer. The undefeated Chicago City SC Lions, they host the 2-6 FC Wichita team. And Austin, FC Wichita, the postseason is no longer a possibility, but they can still play the role of spoiler.
They absolutely sure could, because the Des Moines Menace have a very good opportunity of sneaking up in Chicago City in these last couple games remaining in the season to potentially snag that number 1 spot and upset them possibly in the standings for USL League 2. But thus far in the season, Chicago City has been one of the most formidable teams in all of League 2 in just their amount of skill on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball. It's a very balanced attack throughout, no matter which position that you look at. And thus far, with Chicago City SC winning against Des Moines Menace just last match 2-1 on the road, that is the first time that Des Moines has a loss 2 times in one season to one singular team since 2017, Kyle.
And the other thing, too, partner, is Des Moines only scored twice, once in each game. This is a high-flying offense. I saw them in person. They beat Springfield ASC 6-0. But not only is Chicago City great offensively, but they get it done where it counts the most. Defensively, they only gave up 1 to Des Moines at home, 1 on the road at Des Moines' home pitch, and now they got a shot. Knock on wood, we got a lot of wood in our pitch tonight to go 10-0 for the rivalry game against the Dutch Lions. And at that game, it doesn't matter if Chicago City's 10-0. That's a rivalry game. You can throw the records out the window.
You absolutely sure could, because especially considering that the different pitch that is going to be used, especially this one right here in Illinois Tech, that'll definitely be playing a factor into one of those matchups, as Dutch Lions, at least last season, were able to utilize the Lions for Hope Sports Complex pitch for that one. But this will be an interesting change of venue and could provide some fireworks just next week.
That'll be interesting. We'll see if we get Chicago Dutch Lions' best effort. They played Chicago City tough. They just lack a little bit of talent offensively, Austin, at the forward positions, does the Chicago Dutch Lions. But like I said, you can throw out the records when the Dutch Lions play Chicago City at the end of the season. But right now, it is business as usual for Chicago City. The last time they were here at IIT, they almost drew Peoria City. Right now, FC Wichita with it. It's played by Race, as Race sends it past midfield. He was trying to pass it over to Bovenberg, now back in their own end, now back to Bovenberg. Lead pass, he tried to get it over that time to Santos, and it's going to be a throw-in awarded for FC Wichita. FC Wichita in the white, the blue is Chicago City, as Cade Martin fakes the throw-in.
Martin, very nice throw in. He was trying to feed it that time to Kake Pereira and then over to midfield. Off the knee, it was off the knee that time of Diaz, and now over to the touchline. It's last touch by Wichita. It'll be a throw in for Quintos, and great defense there, Austin, by Chicago City. They just didn't give Wichita an inch.
They absolutely did. And, you know, that's a great testament to the Chicago City back line that's been one of the best in all of USL League Two, as it's being headed up by Julian Cisneros, one of the best defenders in all of the Heartland Conference, as he's one of the most scrappy players that you'll see throughout this entire match. For those of you watching the broadcast tonight, you'll see him flying around on that back line, getting towards balls and making sure that he's finding those passing lanes, getting in front of those, and ensuring that the attack really does not have many opportunities and going against the goalkeeper of Alex Flowers.
Usually we see Wayman, but Wayman has the night off, and it's just been a great team in Chicago City. When you look at the stats, partner, Chicago City, they have Torellis with 6 goals, but they don't rely on one guy. Anybody on any given night can score a goal or two for the Chicago City team, but watch out for Sidney Warden. We had him in the pregame show. He scored 3 times in his last 2 games.
Yeah, he's absolutely a menace right there in the front for Chicago City, and with him having that late goal against the Des Moines Menace, getting that official win, not having a draw in the 95th minute of that match is just one of the highlights of his season, I'm sure, as he was able to get Chicago City their 9th win on the season. And so he'll absolutely be a player to watch right there in the front part of the Chicago City attack. But also another player to watch for as we continue throughout this is Cade Hagan, the DePaul Blue Demon as well. He's played 17 games for the Blue Demons, having 2 goals and 2 assists in just his past campaign with them.
Yeah, we saw him in that Springfield game. He was a force to be reckoned with for sure. Also, A.J. Franklin, he scored to make it 4-2 in that match. It's been impressive. You look at the power rankings, it's Chicago City. That was such a big match for them because in the power rankings, it was Chicago 1, Des Moines 2. Flint City and Chicago are the 2 only teams in USL 2 who are still undefeated, but Chicago is still the only pure undefeated team. Peoria City has something to say about that, but it was the right call on the offsides. It could have been a draw, but the nearest ref called the offside, so Chicago City still 9-0-0, and we'll see if they can finish the job. The last 2 games go 11-0-0, but partner, if they go 11-0-0, Chicago City, all they care about is going 16-0-0, win 5 games in the round of 32 and win the championship.
There's no doubt about that. Whether they have home matches or on the road, this team will be an absolute force to be reckoned with, no matter who they face up against, whether it could be the Des Moines Menace or some other Heartland and middle-of-the-road conference teams in the Central Conference. So no matter who they play, it'll be very interesting to see how much they will be able to contend with some other teams outside of this tough division here.
If there's anything wrong with the stream, just go on the live chat. It's active. Please speak in English. Although I can speak Chinese and Spanish, I do prefer Inglés, por favor. But I can't speak 3 languages. Over the touchline, Cisneros looks for the call. They play on Austin, and I'm fine with it as long as that's consistently the no call throughout the match.
Certainly so. That was just a heady athletic play there by Julian Cisneros. Really no harm done there by FC Wichita. And over there in the middle, that was Lance Bovenberg. He really didn't make too much of an effort to necessarily push Cisneros. So
right.
Clean play right there.
And what the ref is looking for, did he touch ball first, and then did Cisneros trip over the ball? As long as you get ball first, it's legal.
And, you know, sometimes playing on these turf fields, it's obviously a little bit more slick than a traditional grass pitch.
Right.
But, you know, obviously that can play into it any time that you look at this. As IIT has one of the better turf fields around here that we've seen Chicago City play on, as this field's really only about a decade old. And although that may seem long in turf years, these things can last forever. So thus far, it's really been in great shape.
There's a reason why the Astro Dome and the King Dome in Houston and Seattle respectively lasted all those years. Of course, the greatest show on turf with the St. Louis Rams at the Edward Jones Dome, headed away by FC Wichita at midfield. FC Wichita's Fabricio Reyes was looking for the call, but nothing issued. Meanwhile, throw-in awarded for FC Wichita. I gotta say, partner, the FC Wichita jerseys are very cool. They got the Wheat State icon on the back of the jersey, white and blacks. They're giving Chicago City SC a run for their money with their away jerseys.
I know it's a very clean white and black look there for FC Wichita, but, you know, obviously, especially having two-tone blue, that's just a very unique look. You don't really see that too often, at least in terms of blue for soccer, where it's a light blue on the top and a dark navy blue on the bottom. So it definitely brings in a unique look, but definitely great branding there for FC Wichita and some of those their kits that they have.
Very few teams wear the powdered blue jerseys. Over to Cisneros. And then passed over to Alejandre. And now over to Sananu. Flowers calls for it. Right now, partner, FC Wichita winning the ball possession battle by just a couple of seconds. It's very even. And do you think that's a factor right now for Chicago? They played okay against Peoria, as Chicago with it right now, but it's a new pitch for them. They mostly play at Lions Frome Sports Complex. Looking for the foul. Austin, I think they missed that one. That looked like a foul.
You know, that was a very tough tackle to make there for Leonardo Menzen for Wichita. That was certainly an aggressive maneuver there, but obviously the refs are wanting to keep this one playing on and not wanting to have any kind of interference. So clearly some open play being allowed here by the refs throughout this match so far. So we'll have to see if that continues on, although we're only 8 minutes into this thing. But going forward, obviously, Chicago City is going to have to keep that in mind. They're going to have to stay consistent on the attack and make sure that they have guys around them to be able to pick up in case a tough foul or tough tackle is made right there in front of the box.
The officials are letting them go, and so Chicago and FC Wichita, they're going to have to make adjustments. It's going to have to be pretty blatant for the ref to call a foul today. Over to Cisneros. On his left foot, booted over near the yellow line. Now back to Cisneros. On his right foot. Stops play. And a tap kick over to Schweinert. And inside Chicago City territory. It's going to be played by Gutierrez. Gutierrez fell down, but great play by Gutierrez to avoid giving up the turnover in midfield. And kicked forward. FC Wichita with kind of a zone defense look right now. Well, that's one of the ways to beat Chicago City, partner. Don't give up any goals and then force the defense for Chicago City to not make any mistakes. Over to Cisneros. Great play by Wichita as they look to clear. It's tapped over to Santos. Give and go play. And they're going to say it was last touched by FC Wichita.
And although Chicago still has the possession now, Kyle, that was definitely an impressive interception there by Gustavo Diaz for Wichita, being able to get in front of that ball and attempt to have a little bit more of the possession. And that's obviously going to be one of their biggest keys throughout this entire match, is being able to keep the ball away from Chicago as long as possible, because we've seen City SC go forward throughout long stretches in which they don't have the ball for long periods of time, and then they still find ways to get on the counterattack and hop right back to it and find those creative chances either inside or outside of the box.
Yeah, for Chicago City SC, they're best when you can get it to their midfielders quickly, and then a lead pass over to Warden or Torellis. Torellis not playing today, obviously, but for FC Wichita, if you can maintain a 0-0 tie going into the 50th minute, the 55th minute, make Chicago work. And we saw against Peoria, Chicago can make the mistakes. They were playing a man down for what seemed like an eternity. Deep in their own territory is FC Wichita. Trying to steal is Wichita. 3 men around the ball. Wichita steals it as it was kicked over to Diaz. Out to midfield, intercepted by Chicago as they go back on offense. Wichita had the first possession of the match. Didn't do much with it. Chicago stole. And since then, the ball's mostly been in Wichita's end. On the right foot. Trying to steal that time by Martin. But keeping it is Chicago City. Over to midfield. It's played by Gutierrez to the touchline. Switching feet on the play. He taps it over to Chech. Kick. That time he finds Warden. And now played by Tascheto. And it's kicked out by Chicago. Goal kick coming up. No shots on goal yet, partner. Both goalies still haven't been tested yet.
It's certainly a very back and forth affair so far, although there haven't been any registered shots on goal for either team. But you can tell how much of the battle is going to be going through the midfield, especially with FC Wichita throwing a 3-5-2 lineup going against the Chicago City 4-3-3. Just having that many midfielders alone for FC Wichita is going to be a very difficult challenge, really, for City, having only 3 players themselves in the midfield. So finding creative ways to get those long balls towards the box and being able to get in front of the back line for Wichita is going to be a very important factor for Chicago City if they want to find more creative chances to get on net.
And if you're Chicago City, do you want to try to get that perfect shot or more that 30-degree, 40-degree angle shot?
You know, especially being this early on in the match, you'll really take kind of whatever chances that you can find and just stay consistent with what you want to and just make those clean passes, because any big interception, we've seen all these athletes throughout this entire season, how quick they can move on this pitch, whether it be a D1 athlete or one of these D2 athletes from a place like Chicago. You can see any kind of range of athleticism from all of these guys on this pitch. And obviously we've seen that many of these guys can have the ability to play at the next level.
It's going to be interesting to see what our Chicago City players can do in the upcoming fall and spring seasons. What a job that the coaching staff, led by Charlie Latshaw and his assistants, have done. The whole program, partner. Even look at the Midwest Premier League. Chicago City is doing well in the Midwest Premier League. The women's team made the playoffs. They had to play Aurora for a 3rd time, so that did end their season. But
even still, having them play with just a woman down in that match, they had a red card about in the 70th minute and still only kept it 1-0. Still an impressive effort. Obviously, you would have liked to have seen the women for Chicago City be able to get on net and possibly get an equalizer and force a longer game. But, you know, Minnesota Aurora, hats off to them. They are one heck of a team, very complete unit.
absolutely. And we will see how it goes later on in the match. And if Chicago can maintain the unbeaten season, the purely unbeaten season, they got to win out. Wouldn't it be something that they went 16-0-0? But I think Charlie Latshaw would take it. If they lost to the Dutch Lions and they went 15-1-0, I think he would take that.
I certainly would think so. You know, all that really matters after having such a good season like this is now thinking about lifting that hardware at the end of it. But
right.
Obviously there's still a long road to go before even thinking about getting towards that moment.
It's always an interesting question when it comes to undefeated records. If you're undefeated, were you really the most talented team of all time? Or you had a weaker schedule that year, and that's why you went undefeated?
Well, and certainly we've seen throughout this entire Heartland division that there's very quality teams throughout, and especially you throw in St. Charles that has just joined the division. Peoria City has had a solid squad this entire time. FC Wichita, they've had their up and downs. They've been 0-3 against St. Charles in just their last match, but they are 1-3 in their last 4 matches. So obviously they have been struggling of late, but they started out fairly well. So, you know, the ebbs and flows of every season, it can determine exactly how you're going to end the season. But overall, you look at all the talent in this division, especially Des Moines and Chicago, that's very clearly there.
Right. I mean, you could make the argument that it could be Chicago against Des Moines in the championship. There's a lot of Flint City fans that are watching today's broadcast, I would argue. And look, if it's Chicago against Flint City or Des Moines against Flint City, absolutely. And there's obviously a 4th or 5th team we haven't mentioned yet that could make a deep run in the tournament. Headed away by FC Wichita. So if you're FC Wichita, you wanted to make the postseason, obviously. That's no longer going to happen. How do you play hard the last 2 matches of the year and try to, you know, play spoiler and maybe get a win tonight?
Well, especially when you consider the stakes that are in this match. You think about all these guys that are on this pitch and their ability as D1 athletes, D2 as well, or any other school that they might be going to. They want to show off all their abilities that they have and want to possibly move on to the next level, maybe find a more advantageous transfer route for a different college, or really find a different professional contract that could be in weight by just being able to show out in a league such as USL League 2. So for all these athletes, there is certainly still plenty on the line for them, although they're not able to think about any hardware at the end of the season.
That's what makes this soccer season so interesting. Few games played. Chicago's going to finish with just 11 total matches. Every match matters. It's almost like single elimination to get to the postseason. That was a dangerous tackle by Wichita. arguing his case, partner, but it just was unnecessary. It's not a yellow card, but it's definitely a foul.
Certainly not. It was definitely a tough foul, but, you know, Ryan Quintos for Chicago City, he took that like a champ and was able to move on, but certainly a tough foul to have to deal with.
Right, and Pereira has great size for the position. He has longer lunges than a lot of other players, so he doesn't always have to slide tackle. His pure size. Now he's getting matched up against Sananu at defense, so that'll be an interesting matchup. Sananu's height against number 9's Pereira's height. That's kicked out that time by Wichita. Warden calls for it.
Absolutely. Whenever you have a large body like Pereira right there in the front for FC Wichita, you certainly want one of your better defenders like Sananu and Juan Gutierrez, who's playing in the captain role for this match for Chicago City. You certainly want them both hounding him anytime he even thinks about getting the ball, because with those long strides, that'll give him the ability to get down the field much quicker than some of the other City players.
We'll have a corner kick, first one of the day. It's going to be for Julian Cisneros. Listed as a defender today, but he's been on offense a lot of this match. Out near the sideline, kicked out by Wichita. Just playing at a fairly new pitch, does that factor in at all for Chicago? Does the pressure of a potential undefeated season come into play today for Chicago?
You know, whenever you think about all these storylines, you have to keep in mind just the fact that this team has done this on every single type of pitch that you can think of, whether it's the rugby style at Alliance for Hope Sports Complex, this soccer field here at Illinois Tech, or on the road at any other number of teams' facilities. So whenever you keep that in mind, I think that definitely plays a factor, but having this much space, I think, plays into Chicago City's advantage. With all the speed that they have on their squad, I think that this can work out well for them, just for the fact that they have more room to breathe and run necessarily than on Alliance for Hope Sports Complex.
Chicago's free kick. If you're Wichita, Austin, you'd love to get a quick steal and get some kind of a counterattack. Get Flowers to think about it a little bit, but first things first, get in the way of that shot, clear it quickly, and then go on the counterattack. It would be a killer if Wichita went down in this match 1-0. The wall set up. See if he can get it through, bend it into the back of the net. Header from Sananu, it goes wide.
And just like you would want Pereira in that situation, if it was FC Wichita, you would certainly want Matthew Sananu to get right there in the front as the tallest body for City to try and get that header, but obviously just a little bit off on the angle there. But a good attempt for City to open up the shooting for them.
Both goalies haven't really been tested. Between the pipes for Wichita is Breno Zanola. And obviously Flowers between the pipes for Chicago City. It's played that time by Diaz, out to the defense. Played now by Ticheto, as Ticheto kicks it over to Reyes. Tap kick, feeds it over to Menzen. Over to the touchline. Off the foot, stolen away, here it comes. For FC Wichita, but it's stolen away that time by Chicago City. Alejandro had it briefly. Now over to Cisneros. Now off foot of Alejandro. Sananu over to Schweinert. A lot of quick passes. That's what makes Chicago so tough to beat, Austin. Quick passes, keeping the defense on their toes.
Absolutely. They have one of the best recovery in all of USL League Two. Just being able to get back on the ball and being able to bounce back, even after a quick interception that we saw right there with FC Wichita on the near side, just being able to get back right on your feet and collecting yourself to be able to get back and defend is one of the hallmarks of the Chicago City SC team.
Lead pass, but two defenders were there on it. The intended target was Santos. It's a tall task for Wichita today. You got to find a way to steal the ball quickly, go back on offense. The more times that Chicago has the ball, the more touches they have, it's going to create less confidence for your team, and it's going to hurt your goalkeeper, because it's hard to be a goalkeeper when your team is constantly on defense.
Exactly so, and that's what Chicago City SC prides themselves on, is being able to get in front and contain possession. They rarely give it up unless there's just a wide open lane and it's an errant pass. But that's what they typically do very well, as we see a hard tackle being made over there in the middle, and Chicago City SC's A.J. Franklin is slow to get up on that one.
That shot, good save by Flowers. First save of the day, Flowers with the save. Yes, good job getting in the way of it. With it is Sanadu. Santos on defense. He goes after Flowers. That with midfield, headed away that time. Chicago playing it on the sideline. It was played that time by Quintos. Now over to the touchline. Past midfield. Closest Chicago player was Warren. Deep in their territory, over to DeChetto. Chicago with the steal. Stop and start move. Wichita answers on D, but Chicago regains possession. Cisneros, chip kick, good one. Header, out in front, chance for Chicago, and somehow Breno, Zanala got a piece of that. Got in the way of that passing lane just a little bit, Austin. Otherwise, it would have been a goal for Chicago.
Certainly a great save there by Zanola, getting right on top of that. But, you know, you see Sidney Warden right there trying to be able to strike on that opportunity, but just really not quite the right placement there. But certainly a great opportunity for Chicago to continue to hound Zanola and not make his life too easy. There's another shot, but way too wide there. Shot by Andrew Schweiner.
That's one of those shots. It's in the right spot of the pitch, but if you're not ready to shoot, chances are it's probably going to be high. So maybe you kick it to the right just a little bit so you can get something on the kick. But I understand why he shot it, because it was right in front of the net. But you also want to think we want to keep possessions going. High shots, giving them the goal kick, that doesn't help us either.
Exactly. Making just one extra pass can never really hurt unless that player is being closely defended. So keeping the defense on their toes is certainly what Chicago City is able to do much of the time. But being able to do that is difficult whenever you have a long shot to have to deal with.
Sanadu got a piece of that. He was the last one to touch it. Throw-in awarded for Wichita. It's a long drive from Wichita to Chicago. And it would be a long drive back to lose. They would fall to 2-7 if they lose today. Cisneros playing it, trying to get the steal, and he does! But Benson called for the foul. Tough call, partner, especially because they've seen similar calls to that weren't issued. I'm not saying it's not a foul, but why wasn't that called a foul earlier in the match?
You know, it certainly seemed to be a little bit more of a push-off there by Leonardo Menzin. We'd have to go back to the replay to confirm on that one, but at least in the moment, it seemed as though that was a bit of a bang-bang play, but probably the right call made by the refs to be able to give that one back to Chicago.
Just got to be consistent with it. Whatever you call in the first minute, you got to call in the 91st. And we did see some being issued from the first 5 minutes of this match. Wichita with it. It's played by Menzin over to midfield, stolen by Sanano. Over into it is Alejandre. Now back to Wichita. Barton has it on his right foot. Over to Santos. Last touch by Chicago. Throw-in awarded for Wichita. Just a beautiful night for soccer. Not too hot. One of the few times we've seen sunshine these past 5 days. We've seen rain and overcast. But just when the soccer game started, we got some sunshine. At the touchline. Goes off the body. Time of Benson out of bounds. Throw-in for Chicago.
And, you know, going back to your point about the weather, partner, it's really just the fact that the soccer gods are really trying to show off a beautiful backdrop for the beautiful game right here on the south side of Chicago with the skyline right there in the background on the north side of the pitch. Certainly an idyllic scene.
It's hard to believe this is just a Division III pitch. There's a lot of money and time to make this pitch. We got some fans to the right of us, the beautiful Illinois Institute of Technology. If you're in the area, if you're watching, we're right by Guaranteed Rate Field, so if you're coming home from the Sox game, free admission, come over to the match, enjoy some USL 2 men's soccer. Throw in, wide open, chance for Chicago. Kind of an in-between play there, Austin. I couldn't tell if it was a shot or a pass. Either way, it's high and a goal kick awarded for Wichita.
It certainly was. I definitely like the opportunity there by Sidney Warden to want to be able to chip that high and away, but really just a tough angle for him to have to deal with. Really just no room for having to be able to pass that either. So a tough situation all around, but I like the idea by him to pass it high and away from the keeper there.
Sometimes you got to trust in your teammate. I know you don't want to do that line drive chip kick, but you also don't want to put it too high where you can't even head it at all. You got to know kind of how far he can jump up. Anything else you guys know how talented you are on your chip kicks. It's always hard doing a chip kick on the run, but Warden, there's a reason why he's been a ferocious attacker with 3 goals in his last 2 matches. Lead kick. It's right on target. Here comes Chicago. Cisneros to the trailer in Mabai. Mabai after. As he taps it over near the touchline. They reset. Slow-moving ball up in the air. It's headed away that time by Martin. Keeping it is Wichita. Off the body, Pereira avoids the handball. And there were a swarm of players from Chicago City to steal it. Now near midfield, at the touchline. Now played to the near touchline. Out in midfield, in the center circle. Tapped over to the far touchline. Chicago's had some opportunities. Out front, we'll call that a shot. Easy save though for Zanola. Now did it go past the end line? Oh boy, a break for Chicago as Zanola. Got to catch that, Austin. When you deflect it downwards, the chance of it going out of bounds, a lot higher probability.
Exactly so, and that really looked like a fairly routine save for him. As tough as that angle was for Warden to be able to shoot that one, you would have had expected that Zanola would have been able to keep that in, but a very tough situation for him to have to deal with. Now he's really going to have to recover with this corner kick coming up here, as it's a low worm burner.
Cisneros will head it. Stolen away by Wichita. It's over to Santos on the touchline. Santos with it. Santos plays it. Trying to steal is Chicago. Pereira falls forward and gets it on his right foot. Pereira. Bad pass. Chicago gets it. It's obtained by Chicago. With it is Franklin. Franklin falling to the pitch. Free kick awarded for Chicago.
You know, after that tough tackle right there, partner, I certainly would agree with the ref on that one, that Diaz for Wichita would have to deserve a yellow on that one. You could clearly see the hands to the back of Franklin there right in the middle, so really not too much of a question on that one.
Just an unnecessary play. He had help over the top. Wichita's played hard. The energy has been there. They've avoided fouling. A little bit of a ticky-tack call on the far side. Deep in Chicago's territory. Meanwhile, free kick for Chicago. Jack Finnegan. Shot. Ooh. Almost got into the back of the net by Cade Hagan. Played well that time, though, by Breno Zanola. If it had gone on net, Zanola probably would have got it anyways.
That ball just being a couple feet out to the right, that was really a great shot by Hagan, but yeah, just a bit too far outside, to quote Major League there. But, you know, just really a good opportunity there from him, but, you know, you would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more creativity considering how far he was, but it was close enough to being on target. So you got to give him credit for that one.
It's a deceiving 2-6 record by Wichita. They've had moments where they've looked good. They scored 3 goals in a match. Problem is they gave up 4. So the offense has sometimes been there for Wichita. They defeated Springfield 4-2. They also beat the Dutch Lions earlier in the year. But that's it. 2 wins. They're going to finish the season under 500. Meanwhile, Chicago, the unbeaten season, is still alive. Franklin. Great play by Wichita. As here comes Wichita. Pereira with it. Pereira. Great kick. Getting it between 2 Chicago City players. played by Santos. Right-footed boot to the far touchline. Wichita's kind of struggled with Austin, stealing the ball and maintaining possession.
Exactly so, and that's really a testament to Chicago City, to being able to be after the ball, whether they're on offense or really on defense, staying consistent, getting in front of those passing lanes. But FC Wichita, like you mentioned earlier, they have been very aggressive thus far in the match and trying to get after the ball as much as they can, but overall they've really not had too many opportunities to retain possession for long periods of time like Chicago has.
Over to the touchline. Over to the touchline as it's played over. And a foul called against Chicago. Once again, the chat line's open, so if there's something wrong with the broadcast, if you can't hear the play-by-play or color people, just let us know. We'll get it fixed for you. At midfield, off the foot. Sinano Pereira still after it. Slow-moving ball, straight up in the air. Out of midfield, off the foot. Look at that, playing it to himself, and he maintains possession. A fantastic play by Leonardo Menzin, but Chicago gets it right back.
And it was great awareness there by Cisneros to track the ball in the air and being able to get it back down with his foot and maintain that one. But still, Wichita is able to hold on to this one and still try to make an attempt as we still are scoreless 33 minutes into this match.
Over to the goalkeeper and sent over to the touchline, off the foot. Booted over. It was booted over that time to Menzin. Inside their own territory. It was played that time by 5. Now played by Diaz. Inside their own territory. In the 34th minute, still no score. I guess you could say the best opportunity was that save that Flowers made, but everything else, there's been chances, centering passes, and then read well by Zanola. It's been fabulous defense played by Wichita thus far.
It really has, and obviously Chicago, we've seen their opportunities that they've had so far, but obviously all those shots have gone wide or really have just been off the mark and not quite right timing. But you'll have to see how they'll recover and continue to move forward, as they have had in total more shots that have been on target rather than Wichita. But that key chance for Wichita clearly shows that they have signs of life and being able to get towards Flowers and make his day difficult.
Stolen away by Wichita. Menzin with it. Menzin with some speed. Pass near the box. Shot. Beautiful block that time by Juan Gutierrez. Taking one for the team that time, Austin.
Absolutely. That shows right there why he's the 3-time high school defenseman of the year for his home state there. And he's also played 17 games for UIC here in Chicago. So that save alone right there is what makes him not only the captain, but also a great defenseman for the City SC to have.
It'll be a free kick coming up. Sorry, corner kick. It was a long drive from Carroll Stream. Corner kick. This is an interesting set piece, partner. You got 2 players next to each other on the corner kick. Have you seen that a lot?
Certainly not with FC Wichita having.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. They are back in bounds, partner.
I was like, kind of want to have as many players as you can closer to the net, or a little tap kick. So then you do that like pseudo corner that's 5 meters closer on the kick. They're taking their time. Would it be a win for Wichita if you get the draw, because Chicago would no longer have the purely unbeaten season?
You know, it would certainly be a morale booster overall for them to be able to do that. But, you know, obviously they don't have really any hardware to play for, so being able to do that against a team such as Chicago, who they're playing in 9 days from now as well to end the season at home, that would be certainly a big thing to have going in towards the end of the regular season. But obviously they're going to have some better chances going forward in this match if they even want to think about doing that.
Yep, they have to go back to Wichita. Who would have thunk it when the season started? Chicago would be number 1 in the power rankings, but here they are with a fabulous year, and everybody has contributed. Warden was not a big part of this team earlier in the season. He was mostly on the Midwest Premier League roster. He has stepped up his game as of late, and he has been fabulous. But everybody has contributed. If you had to name one player, their best player, you could argue is Jackson Wayman, but it's been a complete team effort for Chicago this season.
Absolutely, and especially with Coach Latshaw being able to trust his goalkeepers, especially with one like Alex Flowers, who hasn't seen a match in USL League 2 play since June 16th. You really have to imagine that all those goalkeepers could go against practically anybody in the league, and to have the confidence to be able to try to not only Wayman but also Flowers and as well as Svetanov for Chicago, you really have to keep credit for one of the goalkeeper coaches, Tom Paparunas, to be able to keep them in shape and ready throughout this entire USL 2 season.
Kick back. Wichita will play it. Lead kick. A little bit too much on it. It's stolen away that time by Mabai. Kate Hagen with it. He had a free kick earlier. Hagen near the yellow line. Over to Cisneros. Right on target. Right on stride. Sending it over to Alejandre. Little tap boot. Another tap kick. Help comes, double team, Wichita with the steal. A swarm of Chicago players around it. Leading the way with Schweinert. Now here comes Wichita. Past the midway line, and they're going to say last touch by Chicago.
And certainly some great chances being made here by both sides. Clearly the effort is going through the entire midfield for both sides, but what gives way is certainly going to be how those through balls go towards the forwards of either side to be able to get more chances for shots against these very well-played goalkeepers in either side. But it is impressive thus far for Wichita to keep Chicago City at 0 already this far into the first half, 39 minutes in.
Kicked over. It's a beautiful night for soccer. Chicago and Wichita deadlocked at a 0-0 tie. Near midfield. On the foot. Played right now by Menzen. Getting in the way of that pass was Franklin. No look pass. Tap and go. It's played now by Rice. Over to Diaz. Kicked over to the touchline off the foot of Ticheto. And now sent to Rice. Rice will play it. Rice. No look kick. That was a beauty. Sent over to Santos. At the yellow line. Lead kick. Over to Martin. Little step over move. What have you seen that Wichita's done lately in the last 5 minutes, Austin?
You know, they've certainly had great possession in certain scenarios. Whenever they're on the far side or near side of the pitch, to be able to control those sideline plays, they've done a very good job of those one-on-ones, but really City has gotten in front of those passes time and time again. So if they want some of those downfield runs from very explosive players like João Santos, who has 6 goals on the season, they're going to have to find cleaner passes against this very well-trained Chicago City defense.
Wichita. That steal by Sinanu. Now over to Alejandre. The midway line. He'll take his time. He's got Schweinert on his left. Appreciate everybody watching. It's a large crowd tonight, Austin. Over 354 concurrents. They love their soccer in Wichita. Over to the end line. It's played by Franklin. Out in front, off the head, ball loose. And Cisneros and Chicago will have to reset play. Cisneros having a little fun. And Pereira's like, I think it's our free kick, Cisneros. He's like, you're not going to have that ball right away. Kicked it away from Pereira.
Exactly so, partner. And that collision there was Sidney Warden and another FC Wichita player there. Certainly not an ideal scenario. You hope both players are okay. They were slow to get up, but it seems as though both are fine and play will be able to continue on. But that was definitely a tough collision to have to worry about.
Sorry, if you're Wichita, we're in the 42nd minute, Austin. Do you want to be conservative the last 3 or so minutes, or do you stay aggressive, try to get one past the keeper and put the pressure on Chicago?
You know, at this point in the season, especially the way that they played thus far in the match, they've had those key opportunities to get it downfield. We've seen their ability to be able to get that ball all the way through towards the box. But, you know, after what we've seen from Chicago to be able to get in front of those passes, I can't imagine that FC Wichita is going to have too many more chances in this first half. So they'll really have to step on the gas if they want to put anything on the board before the end of the half.
Header by Warden. And what has Wichita's defense done to really isolate Warden away from the front of the net, have somebody else beat them tonight?
You know, you really see both defenders right back there, really almost all three of them being able to mark their men and be able to communicate very effectively towards one another. But Chicago obviously has a lot of open space back there, and you would like to see Wichita get a little bit closer and not be able to have those long shots out there. But obviously Chicago, they haven't had much ability to stay too accurate and be on the mark and get on towards net, but we'll have to see how that changes going forward.
For Wichita to win, is it probably going to be a 1-0 final score?
You know, it's too tough to say, especially in this league. You know, we've seen all different variations of scores, whether it be a 5-0 shutout or really just a 1-2 draw win for Chicago City. So it'd be impressive if FC Wichita can keep Chicago City at one singular goal. That would be, in and of itself, a bit of a win for them. But obviously the potent attack for Chicago is there. You see all these different forwards that they have with Sidney Warden, Cade Hagan, as well as A.J. Franklin, the young striker out there in the middle.
They've tried to get it to Warden, and you would assume as this game gets later on in the match, Austin, Wichita is going to find a way to get a chip kick, try to get it over to Pereira, and he can head it into the back of the net, try to have Pereira use his size to their advantage.
Absolutely, and making some of those extra passes is something that we've seen for really both sides, of not really having to really get the defense off their heels and really kind of backpedal too much. So being able to have those opportunities to make that extra pass and find more open lanes to shoot is what's going to be very critical. And obviously finding Pereira or Santos for Wichita is going to be key going into the second half.
Was played that time by Alejandre. Past the midway line. Tap kick, beautiful kick by Warden. And Chicago trying to keep possession. We haven't seen a lot of injuries, a lot of free kicks. I'd be shocked if we play past the 48th minute. We're right in the 45th minute at the 44-18 mark. Free kick awarded for Chicago. Pretty blatant that time, Austin. Fabricio Reyes, he couldn't even argue his case.
Yeah, certainly so. That was a very obvious call for the referees to make on that one. But now with time dwindling down here in the first half, this is a key opportunity forward and potentially put FC Wichita on their heels for the remainder of this match. But now it relies on Julian Cisneros to take the free kick on this one, excuse me, that'll be Cade Hagan for Chicago City being able to take that free kick. And you don't see too many bodies near him, so you have to imagine that a lot of crashing towards the net is going to have to be occurring here as soon as that ball is launched in the air.
Free kick awarded for Chicago. Straight up in the air header, and it's headed away. Out in front. Chance. Block shot. Nothing score. And Tony does a great job on public address announcing, as sometimes the clock doesn't always go the way that we want it to on the electronic jumbotron, but corner kick awarded for Chicago. Out in front. Headed away. Great job that time by FC Wichita, and that'll do it. Surprising, Austin. It's 0-0, and this is the second time in as many games here at IIT it could go down to the last kick of the match.
It absolutely could, partner. This one's really shaping up to be a very interesting finish because Wichita has done a great job of forcing Chicago to have to take very tough shots, and we saw Zanola right there at the very end with a great punch out as well as a header with some of his other fellow defenders. So really, Chicago City, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board on this one and figure out ways to get a little more creative on offense and find more shots. So
we will take a break, then we'll let you know what we have in terms of our pen and paper stats today. But we'll take a break, and it's 0-0 here at IIT campus. You're watching SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone.
Sports Broadcast Solutions is a broadcasting network for everyone. SBS offers live telecasts on Channel 59.3, YouTube, or Twitch. We include pre- and post-game interviews with the players.
You know, I started in the locker room. All the boys were getting going before the game and stuff, and we kind of found a little click at the beginning of the game, so I think that's what got us going.
We also include digital live statistics, play-by-play commentary, team highlight reels, and even more than that. Go online to sportsbroadcastsolutions.com or search Sports Broadcast Solutions on YouTube. SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone.
Sports Broadcast Solutions is a broadcasting network for everyone. At SBS, we offer a professional broadcasting experience for the non-professional athlete. Just like the pros, we offer everything for you. Play-by-play commentary.
A no-hitter at Kane County Stadium. 15 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 error, and that's it.
Color commentary, highlight reels, recruiting videos, and much, much more. Unlike our competitors, we zoom in on the action and always have a live scoreboard with a live time code. If you're ready to have your next sporting event feel like CBS Sports, then make sure to call Sports Broadcast Solutions today. Our phone number is 330-957-7653, or you can go online to sportsbroadcastsolutions.com. SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone.
Missing your child's sporting event just plain stinks. But you don't have to worry about that anymore, thanks to Sports Broadcast Solutions. SBS is a live broadcasting network, as well as covering your on-demand needs, recruiting videos, highlight reels, and much, much more. We can broadcast live to any website, and we also post as much on-demand content as you need. For more information about SBS, check out our website at sportsbroadcastsolutions.com. Sports Broadcast Solutions, a broadcasting network for everyone.
Sports Broadcast Solutions is a broadcasting network for everyone. Let SBS broadcast your sporting event. We have experience and can generate excitement and permanent digital memories for your team.
Tonight. That time, finally a goal for the Stampede!
We have professional videographers using high-definition modern-day cameras, color analysts, and play-by-play announcers with state-of-the-art, classy graphical scoreboards to keep you updated. Plus, we have commercials to advertise your team, club, or sponsor, and us. Plus, we do pregame and postgame interviews.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the postgame show brought to you by Marion Central Catholic. My name's Kyle Smith. Well, my name doesn't matter. These young ladies matter. It's senior night as the Hurricanes win a battle down the stretch, 48-46.
Hi, I'm Carrie Kramer. I swim 50 breast, 50 free, and 100 back.
Whatever your sports broadcast needs, we are at sportsbroadcastsolutions.com. Check us out and become part of the digital sporting world. Sports Broadcast Solutions is a broadcasting network for everyone. Instead of spending hundreds or thousands with all these college recruiting sites, let us put together your college highlight reel. For just a fraction of your potential college scholarship and significantly less than these recruiting services, we got this. In addition, we put together highlight reels for teams, including high school, your club team, or travel team.
My teammate gave me a great pass, and I just took it. The other team slashed me, took the opportunity, saw where the goalie was weak, and I just shot it there.
Solon O'Connor and Marsh back on defense. And Marsh gets a blowout. We got a breakaway at 2-0. A shot and a goal. So 3-3. The power play was officially over.
Whatever your sports broadcast needs, check us out at sportsbroadcastsolutions.com. Check us out and become part of the digital world. Sports Broadcast Solutions is a broadcasting network for everyone. For those of you who would like to broadcast or live stream your event, or maybe make a highlight tape but would like a sponsor to fund the event, SBS has a myriad of ways to advertise your sponsor during our broadcasts. We have commercials. We have on-air reads by the announcers.
Albatross Physical Therapy and Wellness specializes in pain-free.
We have graphics, and we have watermarks. Finally, Sports Broadcast Solutions can create a commercial for you or your sponsor. Whatever your sports broadcast needs, we are at sportsbroadcastsolutions.com. Check us out and become part of the digital sporting world. Sports Broadcast Solutions is a broadcasting network for everyone. For those of you that just want raw footage of your sporting event, but no play-by-play or color commentary, you just need us to live stream video from the event over the internet. We will live stream your event on YouTube on our Sports Broadcast Solutions channel. In addition, we also have a dedicated channel on YouTube for live streaming at SBS Livestream. And if you need multiple channels, we can utilize Facebook Livestream and Instagram Live on our channel as well. Options include commercials from your sponsors, professional scoreboard graphics are still available, and of course, yes, pre- and post-game interviews are available as an option if you want.
We've been working really hard this whole summer and stuff.
Whatever your sports broadcast needs, we are at sportsbroadcastsolutions.com. Check us out and become part of the digital sporting world. Sports Broadcast Solutions is a broadcasting network for everyone. We broadcast sporting events for people of all ages, including adult leagues, high school leagues, and kids. Complete with professional-looking graphics, broadcasters, color analysis, and commercials. We do pre- and post-game interviews with the players. In addition, Sports Broadcast Solutions does highlight films, including college recruiting reels, highlight films you'd see on sports news programs, and just simply highlight films for fun. Sports Broadcast Solutions also provides raw footage and live streams if you'd like. Subscribe to us and listen to our professional talk videos about relevant topics in the pro and college ranks. Whatever your sports broadcast needs, contact us at sportsbroadcastsolutions.com and become part of the digital world. This is Sports Broadcast Solutions, a broadcasting network for everyone. Check us out at sportsbroadcastsolutions.com and become part of the digital sporting world.
Todd Helton, a man synonymous with the peak of Coors Field hysteria, the 5-time All-Star and 4-time Silver Slugger winner, was beloved by Rockies fans for his fantastic play on both offense and defense. One of the greatest Rockies of all time, his success has consistently been downplayed because of his home stadium. Helton's Hall of Fame case has been widely debated among the baseball community, with no conclusive decision. Just recently, this past January, the voters almost elected him into baseball immortality. He received over 72% of the vote for Cooperstown induction, but he needed another 3% of the vote to get into the Hall of Fame. This video will look into what factors help and hurt his case to earn his plaque in New York, and whether or not it's realistic for Helton to eventually make the Hall. Let's first do a statistics breakdown. Helton played for a very long time, nearly 2 decades, all for the Rockies, and was never an easy out once he arrived in the league. Through his first 10 seasons in Major League Baseball, Helton not only managed to walk more than strike out in 8 of the 10 aforementioned seasons, a very much appreciated quality in a young player, but he also managed an OPS, or on-base percentage plus slugging, above 1, settling in at a remarkable 1.04 OPS for the entire span. Oh, and let's go back to Helton having more walks than strikeouts. During his first season of playing in at least 100 games, Helton struck out 54 times and just walked 53 times. From 2000 to 2008, Helton walked more than striking out, with his worst season, quote-unquote, being the 1999 campaign, where he recorded 68 walks to 77 punch-outs. Out of all the first basemen who played at least 1,000 games from 1997 to 2013, his first and last year in the league, Todd Helton leads the pack by 4 points in OPS, beating out Hall of Famer Jeff Bagwell and future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols. One of his biggest strengths, his vision, was the catalyst that led to his success. His magnum opus was his 2000 season, where he hit for the percentage triple crown, leading the league in all 3 major stats: on base percentage, batting average, and slugging percentage. He hit a ludicrous .372, winning a batting title and having the 3rd highest single-season batting average from 1990 to the 2000 decade. During that decade, he actually tied for 3rd in terms of batting average. The only 2 players ahead of him are his teammate, in my opinion, the greatest Rocky of all time, Larry Walker, and all-time great Tony Gwynn with his abbreviated chase for 400. This came along with plenty of pop as well, slugging almost 700 with 103 extra base hits. In fact, this was the 4th most extra bases in MLB history and 2nd most in the NL ever. It was also his breakout season, netting him his first All-Star game, but his MVP candidacy was probably hindered not only by his youth, not having been an established star, but also what is commonly referred to as the Coors effect. This is when accolades and statistics from Rockies players are seen with less legitimacy due to the thin air in Colorado, which allows for the ball to fly further than anywhere else. This has only increased as time gone on, with the Rockies playing their home games at Coors Field, with sabermetrics putting a higher emphasis on regulating stadium factors. Older players also benefited more prior to the humiditor era. Beginning last season, all 30 MLB teams now have to store the game balls to control the inconsistencies between them. Humiditators work by bringing baseballs to an average humidity, which means in a dry park they will become more humid and heavier. Regardless of stadium, Todd Helton's hitting stats were some of the best in the league over a 5-year span. His 2000 to 2004 stretch of dominance beats out the best of his contemporaries. He once again beats out Pujols, Lance Berkman, and Jason Giambi, some of the best first basemen of his era in terms of OPS. He also paces the group in homers, RBIs, and has the best walk-to-strikeout ratio of the group. Now let's take a look at his defensive stats. None of this era has even been discussed. One of Helton's best traits as well, his ability to play very well on both sides of the ball. His 3 gold gloves were no mistake. He ranks near the top of the leaderboards all time in WAR and defensive WAR for first baseman, landing 14th in career WAR and 4th in defensive WAR compared to others who have played as many games of all time. He falls 2nd since integration, just behind Albert Pujols, and of course integration means since 1947. It's important to know that defensive wins above replacement is based on calculations that give value to positions, making a premium positions like shortstop or center field worth a lot more than a position like first base. For players who play DH and first base primarily, unless your name is pretty much Keith Hernandez, the more games they play, the lower their defensive WAR goes, almost in spite of good defense. This just means that if you don't play defense, for example, a designated hitter like David Ortiz, your defensive WAR becomes virtually non-existent and in the negative column. Anyway, Helton clocks in at -5 defensive WAR behind Pujols, who is known to be one of the best first base of all time defensively as well, with his -4.1 mark. While at their peaks, Pujols may have been the best first baseman defensively, which is definitely no slight to Helton. But let's talk about the great defensive metrics when it comes to Helton. Besides winning 3 Gold Glove awards, Helton's 9.5 range factor per game is 2nd all time.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second half with Chicago City SC and FC Wichita. It is a 0-0 game so far. We've seen some very impressive defense from FC Wichita, with them having 5 midfielders and 3 defenders. It's very stalwart defense to have to go against, and Chicago City SC has had their chances, but they're making a sub here in the beginning of the second half, subbing Lyndon Hu in favor for Andrew Schweiner, who's coming off the pitch. And so adding that new depth there for midfield, having a fresh face could help them and potentially bring more shots onto the attack. But for FC Wichita, they've had their moments, Kyle, throughout this match with Santos and Leonardo Menzin to have their shots.
That was a fabulous play that Menzin did at the 32nd minute. The ball was in midair. He kicked it straight up to his head, then headed it back to his foot, all in one play. But that's why Chicago's 9-0-0. Right after Menzin did that, they stole it right away. So kind of the difference between a 2-6-0 team versus a 9-0-0 team. The 2-6-0 team does everything perfect, and then the 9-0 team still steals the ball.
Exactly so, and that's just really the awareness and athleticism for Chicago City SC to be able to be there right exactly when the moment calls for it. And so thus far in the match, we've seen them really have great opportunities to be able to get in front of those passing lanes and not allow FC Wichita too much space in front of the box.
At midfield, the guy off the bench in who? Number 10, watch out for him. See what kind of minutes he brings. Coming off the bench. Will play at least 3 minutes of extra time. Try to get a winner today. A tie would still keep the undefeated season for Chicago, but they would no longer be purely unbeaten. So, partner, Chicago has dominated at Lions Robe Sports Complex. They were up 2-0 on Peoria. Then they had that yellow card, which became a red card inherently because of 2 yellows on Dueso. They gave up the goal, and they gave up a second goal, but that was disallowed because of offsides. Now we have a 0-0 tie. Is it harder to play on this pitch versus Lions Robe Sports Complex?
Well, we touched on it a little bit in the first half about how much the dimensions are so much different. There's a lot more space on this field here at Illinois Tech, and being able to have that much more room definitely has its advantages, but also its disadvantages compared to Lions for Hope, which is a little bit more narrow and a lot faster playing field. So having this much room, and especially with this many defenders to go against for FC Wichita, definitely makes it difficult because they're able to swarm around any sort of attack that we see right here with Chicago City.
Hagen had it briefly, but it was stolen by Wichita. Coming off the bench, Eduardo Santos. There's a couple of Santos on this team. Joao and Eduardo. And Joao has been fantastic. He is not your average Joe.
He certainly is not, partner. He is one of the league leaders. He's up there in the amount of goals that he's scored thus far in the season, having 6 so far to his campaign. And really a testament to him being able to do that for a team like FC Wichita, which has really struggled most of the season to be able to get balls into the net and be able to get goals throughout the season, as they do have a -9 goal differential thus far, which is surprising considering how solid and steady their defense has been thus far in this match. You wouldn't have expected that.
So we have a Sidney Warden who plays for Chicago. Does that mean his favorite? There's a header try over to the intended target was Franklin. Sidney Warden on Chicago. Does that mean his favorite song is Jailhouse Rock?
It might be, partner. It honestly might be. Or anything dealing with Alcatraz or any other big jails around this.
Favorite movie is, darn it, what was that movie with Morgan Freeman and Tony Robbins?
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. The Warden.
One of the best movies of all time.
Oh, great movie.
Not to be biased or anything, but, you know, throwing my 2 cents out there on that one.
Is the greatest movie of all time The Room?
You know, I would certainly think so. If only we had Mark on our team. If only we had Mark back out on the pitch, we could use that quote perfectly for Mark Torella. Say, oh, hi, Mark.
There's on 670 The Score, there's this guy that hosts the 6 o'clock show every now and then. His name's Mark Grody. And every time they come out of commercial and Mark introduces the show, they start with the intro teaser of, oh, hi, Mark. Gets me every time.
See, now that's creative sports broadcasting right there.
There it is. That's the epitome of sports talk radio.
Exactly.
Out in front, stolen away by Wichita. Charlie Latshaw not happy, partner. And you can understand there's a reason why FC Wichita is 2-6. They played hard, but there's a reason why they've lost 6 matches. It would be tough for Chicago to lose their purely unbeaten season at home and a tie to FC Wichita.
Exactly so, and especially being at home, it would make it a lot more difficult for them to have to really be able to control themselves and be able to get ready for their next match, which is at home here at IIT against the Chicago Dutch Lions next Wednesday. So it would certainly not be some great momentum to go into that match if you were to somehow outright lose this one. But really, it wouldn't affect too much in the standings. They would still have that #1 seed, but still really have to keep the pressure on to be able to have a couple more wins, as Des Moines is just right there, right behind them in the 2nd seed in the standings.
Over to the far touchline. The chat line's open. Feel free to chat your favorite FIFA World Cup, college, or high school soccer memory. Out to midfield. And as always, if something's wrong with the broadcast, just go on the chat. We'll get it fixed for you, but only English. I don't speak Portuguese. Lead pass, not on target. Goal kick awarded for Flowers. Each goalie with one save, partner, but the save of the game was Flowers in the first half. Zanola's credited with a save, but it was a tough angle shot by Warden that Zanola saved, but he didn't fully corral it. He knocked it down, and it went out of bounds. It became a corner kick for Chicago. They had 4 corners in the first half, just 2 awarded for FC Wichita. It's kind of the definition of a tie. Not a lot of opportunities for either team. And we'll see if who can help out the Chicago team coming off the bench. Header. The intended target was Santos. Falling to the pitch, but able to kick it out on the near touchline. Going after it is Mabai. And then stolen away by Santos out in front. And then Mabai got it over to Diaz. Kicked over in front. Off the foot that time of Bobenberg. Headed up, but headed the wrong way. Here comes Warden. Lead kick. Not a lot on that, partner. Easy for Wichita to steal. And as we get later on this match, the pressure becomes more on Chicago.
It certainly does, and especially the way that FC Wichita has been able to play slow, methodical soccer throughout this match, and having these opportunities right there in the middle as there's a foul called.
Yeah.
That's going against Wichita. Chicago's lucky to get out of that one. That could have been a real jam there, Kyle, having that many white shirts in the middle of the box.
Heads-up play by Sinanu, knowing that Pereira is taller than most other Chicago player except Sinanu, saying, my man, get out of the way. He comes over, helps out, creates problems for Pereira. Pereira makes the mistake of pushing off, and a free kick awarded for Chicago.
And Sinanu, a very steady presence that you always want to have in a solid back line, being a transfer from going from Xavier to UNC. This is his second season with Chicago City SC and has been a solid left back throughout much of the season.
And I stand corrected. Pereira was actually offside. No foul. Looking for the free kick. See what the refs issue here. Wichita is arguing that Chicago pushed off first. Oh my goodness. A red card awarded on the pitch. Oh boy. We're going to watch that right now. So a headbutt against FC Wichita. So we're going to watch it on our screen. It was a goal kick over to the touchline. And the headbutt was after the ball was kicked. So they wanted the free kick awarded there. Nothing was issued. It was a throw-in to the sideline. Then FC Wichita got it. Booted over to midfield. And an elbow and then a kick. So there was an elbow in the kick. You saw it from 10. I don't know, partner. A nothing game. It's definitely a yellow card.
You know,
red card. I'll play it for you again. So here's the throw-in. It's going to happen in about 30 seconds. Free kick, by the way, for Chicago.
Well, especially when we were looking right here on the near side of the pitch in the moment, it certainly seemed to be a bit of a bang-bang play, but obviously both of these teams have been playing very physical throughout this match, and
so it was off our camera
seem
angle.
Like that was too much of an aggressive maneuver.
It's definitely a yellow card. I don't know about a red card.
I tend to agree with you, partner. That doesn't really necessarily seem like a foul warranting a red, but, you know, I'm not the referee in this scenario, but they've made their decision, and now FC Wichita, they have to find ways to be able to respond. Now only having 10 men total on the pitch, this just made their lives incredibly more difficult going throughout this match.
Was it a smart play by Santos? No. Was it intent to injure? No. Was it the right call? Well, I mean, if you thought that he was leading with the spikes and intent to injure, okay, from my vantage point, I don't think so, but that's why he's the ref. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. Meanwhile, break for Chicago. The problem is, partner, they've had trouble getting shots on net, but they do have an extra man. See what Chicago can do. Out in front. They certainly got the breaks, haven't they, here at Illinois Institute of Technology. The goal that was not off the offside. Header, try a goal! The red card comes to bite. FC Wichita. Goal awarded for Quintos. Controversy galore, Austin, but Chicago, that's why they're undefeated. They got the break and they made it count.
They're capitalizing on the moment there for Chicago City FC. A beautiful play there to get Ryan Quintos that magnificent header right in the middle. The Chicago Fire FC2 product, being able to get that one in the net just shows why he's a Wisconsin commit, Kyle. And that was just a great maneuver there right in the middle. And obviously we saw Sinanu have that one header earlier in the first half, just a little bit off angle, but Quintos had the perfect elevation and had a great angle to push that one directly into the net. And now a great moment for Chicago City FC to have the advantage of staying up 1-0 now. They now have, beyond that, they still have that 10-man advantage against FC Wichita.
Well, feel free to go on the live chat what you thought. Was it a yellow card? Was it a red card? All that matters is what the sideline judge determined. Big call. And Chicago up 1-0. Well, sometimes, partner, when it rains, it pours, and when you're 2-6, there's a reason. Sometimes you just make bad mistakes at the worst part of the match. Whether it was a yellow or red card, it was a mistake. Don't know if it was a red, but either way, there's just no reason to be kicking or attempting to kick the other team after the ball was away from you like that.
And it's certainly so. And for FC Wichita, they really just have to put all of this out of their minds now and just really try to refocus, although that is going to be a tough task to do, considering they only have 3 other guys on their bench that they can use throughout the rest of this match to be able to sub. They didn't bring too many others, as this is obviously a very long trip to have to make from Wichita, Kansas. But still, going throughout this match, they're going to have to find ways to retool their offense and find some of those longer passes to some of their quicker midfielders to be able to actually get more shots against Alex Flowers.
So for people that are watching the broadcast, Austin, that aren't familiar that much with the game of soccer, how does it work once the red card is issued for the entirety of the match?
From then on, basically the one team that has that red card go against them, they're going to have to play with 10 total men, and they really won't be able to have any more subs from that point onward. And really, it's just a whole different ball game from that point. They're basically playing the power play. Chicago City is, to put it in hockey terms, throughout the rest of this match. Having that advantage is huge. And especially with a team that is as talented as Chicago City, it really doesn't make it too easy against a team like Wichita, who's been struggling as of late.
Well, however you slice it, was it a red, was it a yellow? Just not a good thing to do. And those are kind of the things that you have to work on to win matches. And now you're playing down a man the entire match. So Chicago, you could stay aggressive the rest of the match. That's a header just a little bit wide. Tough for Zanalo, partner. He gives him another goal. That's the match. And I don't see FC Wichita scoring twice to tie it up. So not only does FC Wichita have to tie this one up, they got to find a way to be aggressive down a man, but they can't be overly aggressive, because if they cheat their midfielders up, then it's really a mismatch on offense if you can't get back on defense in time.
And for much of this match, we've seen FC Wichita contain most of their 10 men, especially right here, now 9 in the middle of the box, and really on their own territory. They haven't had too many opportunities, except with Pereira right there screaming down the middle of the pitch. They haven't had too many attackers really try and make some effort to really go forward. They really want to have that buddy system of ensuring that there are plenty of men around them to pass around and get more shots.
What do you do if you're FC Wichita? It's only 1-0, but down a man, it kind of feels like it's 2-0 right now. How do you stay aggressive but not be overly aggressive? You want the tie, but you can't be too aggressive, otherwise you're down 2-0.
Well, although they gave up that goal just earlier, they've really done a great job of marking their men and be able to have a crowd around the ball every time that it's far down into their own territory. And with this many midfielders that they have at their disposal, you have to imagine that they're going to continue to try and stay around the ball as much as they can and possibly park the bucks as long as they can and just have a few key chances on offense.
Ryan Quintos, the difference maker. What a beautiful header that was. I know we talked a lot about the red card. Beautiful header. Chicago made do on their set piece. Headed in front. Chance for Chicago. They found all kinds of ways to win this year. Header, another goal! What a beautiful pass, Austin. It's 2-0 in favor of Chicago City.
What a shot there for Chicago. A beautiful pass right in towards the middle and getting the goal there for Chicago City SC. The second one right there on the day. That's an impressive move there by A.J. Franklin to head that one in.
2-0 Chicago. The onslaught might be on here at the home of the Lions.
And now going throughout this match, Kyle, you can definitely tell how much these sidelines have changed their attitudes, with FC Wichita practically going silent right now, and Chicago City SC practically can't contain themselves with all those subs there on the far corner.
Well, that's what makes soccer the beautiful game. You got to play excellent soccer for 90 minutes. It's not a 45-minute thing. It's not a sometimes thing. It's an always thing. And if you only give me 45 great minutes and 45 so-so minutes, you're probably not going to be the victor. And that's kind of what's happened to FC Wichita today. 45 fantastic minutes. And the last 16, meh. It's 2-0 Chicago.
Exactly. They've really fallen flat here and haven't really gone back to their identity of what they were doing there in the first half that worked so well, of creating key chances, clean passes, but really not too many opportunities to have shots continue to go towards the net of Alex Flowers. But that was a great header there by Sonanu to get it away from the other tall player on the pitch, Pereira.
It's definitely a foul. Could be a yellow card.
That one was certainly a tough foul and tough tackle to make by Sonanu, but it doesn't look like the refs want to have to give a card on that one.
Got to be consistent, though. You call a yellow red card here as iffy. You don't call a yellow card there. I can understand why there'd be frustration by FC Wichita.
Absolutely, and especially considering, really, we've seen it in the first half as well, with both sides having those really tough tackles on the near and far side, but really just containing composure and staying true to what you've been doing thus far in the match is what's going to have to carry FC Wichita to possibly getting a ball into the back of the net here in the second half.
A lot of people watching the live stream. It's football, not soccer. You're not wrong.
But also historians would probably beg to differ that soccer was the original term and was brought over here to America, and America really adopted it, and now England really kind of in the 1970s or so really wanted to continue to put the term back into football and really wanted to make it their own. But, you know, to each his own. Everybody can argue against one terminology against another, but at least here in America, it is absolutely soccer, 100%.
Yep, it's called Major League Soccer, not Major League Football.
The United Soccer League.
Right, yeah.
It's not the United Football League. Otherwise, we'd be playing on the gridiron.
Close. Good shot, but goes a little bit high. Substitution coming in for the Wheat State FC Wichita team. Checking in will be Alvaro Quevada Jr. So tough, partner. You're down a man. You're down 2-0. Give credit, though, where the Chicago City team needs to get credit for. Two phenomenal passes out in front. The header, Franklin with a goal, Quintos with the other one. Great sportsmanship as we see near us. It's being initiated there by Cade Hagan. He's got Santos, put his hand over him. Like I said, man, I still don't think it was intent to injure, but I can see why the ref made the call, and we have to move on, especially if you're an FC Wichita fan and player.
Certainly so, and that those substitutions could be critical for both sides, as Sidney Warden, one of the better players throughout this entire match, being subbed off in favor of Jack Finnegan, the Wisconsin player who's had 4 goals in just his past season with them. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to contribute alongside the other sub for City, Lyndon Hu. But when you put in Junior Quezada for Wichita, you have to imagine that he was going to be able to provide some important defense going forward, as that's a very tough shot to have to block there for Wichita as their players down and clearly in agony.
This is the have to forget for Wichita. But, you know, if you want to improve, if you want to be at that great level, you have to look at the game film. It's hard to watch, knowing, hey, we gave them 45 great minutes. But those 20 minutes of the first half, we should have played better. We should have played with higher soccer IQ. And they didn't. But they have to look at that. And Chicago City, this is not a perfect game by Chicago. Should have had more shots on goal in the first half. But they took advantage of a mistake from the opposition. That's what great teams do. They keep hammering you, playing great energy. You wait for the other team to make a mistake, and then you capitalize.
Absolutely, partner. Especially considering for Chicago that throughout much of the season, except for 2 games being Peoria City and Des Moines Menace on the road just last match, they've really been able to really impose their will against all these teams, to put it honestly. And when I say that, I mean that they've been able to have a minimum 2-goal differential in each of those matches, whether it be a shutout or it also be just a 2-1 victory, or excuse me, a 3-1 victory throughout the rest of the season. And so for them to be able to have that good of defense and a very consistent offense on some of those through balls in the middle that we saw that were headers, it really just goes to show how creative they can actually be. Once that second half hits, they just somehow find the way to turn on the Jets.
FC Wichita will get it. Yeah, dangerous play there, partner. Yellow card awarded. It's against Chicago City, and I agree. That's just not a play you need to make on the sideline like that. You're up by 2 goals. It wasn't even inside your own territory. You were still on offense, on the offensive side of the pitch. Good sportsmanship by both players. Yeah, it's definitely a yellow card. No need to make a slide tackle like that.
Totally agree, partner, especially when you consider Ryan Quintos has had a great game thus far, not only in the defense, but also contributing with a goal in this match. It's not really a play that you would have expected from him to make,
right,
and one that's not necessarily absolutely critical at that point in time. And so still, City SC, they want to play as aggressively as possible. You can understand these players, this is the opportunity for them to showcase to different colleges, other clubs, not only here in America, but possibly abroad as well, to showcase why that they deserve to be able to get some of these contracts later on in their careers.
Stolen away by FC Wichita. Chicago trying to get it back. Ryan Quintos with the game-winning goal. He played for Chicago Fire 2 last season. He lost on July 17th to Orlando B. Also recorded 90 minutes of action in a 3-0 win over FCC 2. And he picked up his first professional goal and the first in Chicago to help guide the team, the second team, to a 4-3 win over Revolution, second on June 26, 2022. So Ryan Quintos, he hasn't just played for Chicago City, he's also played for the Fire's second team. A lot of talent on the Chicago City team. Some talent for FC Wichita, especially Pereira. Just know when to attack, know when to slide tackle, know when the play's over. Move on for another day, another play, another minute. And they didn't. Chicago took advantage. And now if you're Wichita, now you almost have to bring the midfielders up. You give up another goal, that stinks, but if you're not aggressive enough, you're not going to score 2 goals anyway. You're down a man the rest of the match. Line drive kick off the corner, as it was cleared that time by Menzen. We're going to get substitutions for Chicago. Dylan Banker and Alessandro D'Argento looking to check in. Well, FC Wichita, they saw the game film. They shut down Warden today. The problem is there's just so many other guys on the Chicago team, Austin, that can score goals.
No, there certainly are. And you look out throughout this entire roster, you see players like Julian Cisneros, who's typically a defenseman. He can find ways to score. He's done so multiple times throughout the season. Cade Hagan, another solid forward for Chicago, that's been a very steady presence in front throughout this entire season. And as well, we've seen Dylan Baker as well, who's subbing in right now. He's been a very solid defenseman as well that's contributed on a goal attack as well throughout the season. So really any one of these players can obviously contribute in any sort of scenario because the talent is clearly there.
A.J. Franklin, he's a Division I soccer player from Marquette, then he transferred over to Drake. Lead kick, An interesting decision there by Flowers. He heads it. And we'll see what the ref calls here. A lot of things happening there, Austin. Did the goalie headbutt the forward?
Certainly a tough play to have to deal with there for either side, but you really just hope that both players are okay at the end of the day, and you see the trainers going out there to make sure that that's the case. But really, for the referees in this scenario, I'm not sure that really any sort of booking is warranted on this one, but just a bit of a bang-bang play, as we've seen throughout this match, and it's really up to the referees on this one. But overall, it didn't seem like there was going to be too much of an aggressive maneuver. It seemed well within his rights.
Yeah, they're both going
Alex
after
Flowers
it.
to be able to do that.
Both going after it, and this is just tough. I mean, everything is going wrong for FC Wichita. Bodies flying, red cards, giving up goals.
And you got to feel for Pereira. He's been one of the most aggressive players for Wichita. He's been on not only trying to be able to get on the scoring side, but also receiving some of the punishment on the defensive side whenever he's been in front of those shots that we've seen there.
Just tough.
But a yellow card is awarded there.
Did they call it on Pereira or did they call it on the goalkeeper?
It looks as though it will be going against Alex Flowers, as the referee's talking to him for quite a while. So an interesting decision to see a yellow card go against one of the goalkeepers.
Saw it earlier in the year in the Midwest Premier League. They called a red card on Tony Halterman of Chicago House. But Chicago House still won, down a man. And maybe that's why Flowers did not use his hands at the ball, because that's what Halterman did. He went at the ball, and he accidentally tripped the forward outside the box, and they called the red card. And that was it. Chicago House AC was down a man the rest of the match. This time Flowers heads it, and he's only called for the yellow card. You know, the refs are getting their money's worth today, Austin. It has not been easy for the refs today.
It certainly is not, partner, and especially when you consider that now FC Wichita is having to make a substitution, putting in Gail Linderos, subbing out Kake Pereira, who had to get out of that one. That's certainly a tough loss for them, as he's been one of the better aggressive players for them, making chances happen. But really overall for FC Wichita, they've got to find ways to get back onto the attack and still make it really tough for Alex Flowers.
And if you're Chicago, knowing that eventually Wichita is going to have to cheat up their defenders, cheat up their midfielders, do you stay near midfield, be aggressive on offense, or do you just bring all your guys back, try to maintain the 2-0 clean sheet?
Well, considering that they're still down a man, FC Wichita, and they will be throughout the rest of this match, there's really no reason to have to park the bus if you're Chicago and stay close on defense, as we see Kate Hagan go down there after a tough maneuver.
Starting to become an actual American football game right now with all the bodies that are flying. Chicago arguing for either a yellow or a red card. Makes it tough on the line judge and the ref, Austin. You don't want to call red cards the rest of the match, but you want to get it to a point where everybody's safe and injuries aren't happening. If you don't call red cards, it could get worse. I don't think it's gotten to that point. I think Wichita is just frustrated. And the red card that was called is iffy. Mostly it's just been yellow cards or just hard fouls.
Exactly so. And we've seen the aggression peak through with Chicago in multiple home matches throughout this entire season, especially when we saw it with Peoria City. In that later part of the second half, there were a flurry of yellow and red cards by either side. So obviously the tensions continue to rise as a match progresses, but really cooler heads are the ones that are going to have to prevail if you're Chicago, because there's no reason to put anyone in harm's way or find ways to have the referee issue a red card and force one of those players to not be able to be in the match against the Dutch Lions or against this Wichita team later on in the season.
Lead kick, great one. Here comes, oh no! Tough call, Austin. I thought he was onside.
It really did seem like he was able to keep up with Dylan Banker there and try and keep that one on, but the referees thought otherwise. And that could have been one of the best chances all day for FC Wichita to put one on net. But, you know, you have to feel for Quezada there. He had the opportunity to go on the near side of the sideline,
right,
and go against the actual back line for Chicago City SC, but the referees made the decision on that one.
You always
Certainly
wonder.
a tough shot on that one.
Why was a guy wide open on the right-hand or left-hand side? Well, the defender knew where he was. He knew where the forward was. He knew I can stay where I'm at because he's ahead of me. Sometimes he's wide open for a reason, and Quezada was wide open, and it was for a reason according to the nearest ref. Tough break, though, for Wichita. Besides the red card, what does FC Wichita need to do on defense? It's hard playing down a man, but there's also a reason they gave up 2 goals as well.
Well, absolutely. And you see plays like that by Quezada. It's really going to have to be singular opportunities like we've seen. And having those moments, either on the far side of the sidelines, there's another shot there for City. But for them, it's going to have to be singular opportunities on offense because getting through that back line of Chicago with multiple players from the midfield of Wichita has been tough, and they haven't really had much success doing so in this match. And so finding those moments of singular play is going to have to be the difference maker, really, for them if they want to get something into the back of the net.
Another substitution coming in for FC Wichita. It'll be number 14. I think that's Gail Landeros. He's into the match. And Menza no longer in. And who's 14? Because you have Gail Landeros at 65.
So subbing in would be Brian Ailman for FC Wichita.
Out in front, chance as Flowers was away from the net.
A great save there by Sananu. A heady opportunity by him to put the leg up and not allow FC Wichita another shot there in the middle. But still a set piece coming up for them. This could be a critical moment to possibly put something on the board, but you never know here, partner.
Well, it happened before. We thought that Chicago City had a 2-0 clean sheet. Then Peoria came striking hard in the last 5 minutes. The red card but to Oscar Dueso didn't help matters. But great last 5 minutes played by Peoria. Then the offside that everybody heard throughout the conference. Flowers working on the clean sheet. He hasn't had to do a lot tonight, partner. This defensive effort for Chicago City SC has been stifling.
It certainly has. And whenever you see players like Sananu get in front of those through balls in the middle of the box and be able to intercept those, it just goes to show how aware they are, no matter what part of the field that ball is going towards.
Lead kick to 14. As here comes FC Wichita. Should be a foul. They're not going to call it. Meanwhile, FC Wichita with it, kicked out by Chicago City. Well, they didn't get called for the free kick, but they actually gained meters on the play, so kind of an advantage for FC Wichita, but also you can also set up kind of a set piece on a free kick as well.
Certainly so, and it's a bit of a surprising choice by the referees to not call Juan Gutierrez on that one for that foul. But obviously they just wanted the play to continue on here throughout this match, and obviously they thought otherwise. But for FC Wichita, they're clearly in the right advantage and the right area they should have to want to put more shots on the net. But to do that, they have to stay consistent on where they want to put that ball.
Corner kick awarded for FC Wichita in the 34th minute. At this point, Austin, I think Charlie Latshaw, the perfect season's still alive. He'll take the wins however he can get them. They don't have to be perfect.
Exactly so. And for Wichita, this game is not necessarily over, but this certainly doesn't help in this scenario for Cisneros. Just barely losing it on that one.
That's one of those balls. You know you have the breakaway. You know the goalkeeper is coming up hard. Sometimes you can overdo it. You do one too many dribbles and then you lose possession of it. Sometimes it's okay to shoot it early. If he saves it, fine, but at least you got the attempt. Whereas if you wait too long, losing the ball is a lot worse than trying the chip kick a little early and it gets saved. I mean, that's the issue, too. When you're down a man, you're down two, you have to cheat people up. You know you have a chance of giving up a breakaway, but you have to do it to get back in this game.
Absolutely. And if you're FC Wichita, you have to be pumping the gas as much as you can and staying on the throttle as much as you can to have those opportunities like we've seen, screaming down the pitch and continue to make those one-on-one opportunities against the Chicago defense, which is not always an easy task against Sonatu and Gutierrez back there.
It's been a fun one in Chicago. It sent that time to Babai. As falling down is Babai. Wichita had it briefly. Chicago gets it back. Over to Banker. Now to midfield. Don't go anywhere. The post-game show brought to you by SBS. Austin Wright will be on the mic. And we'll probably get one of the two goal scorers, Quintos or Franklin. Probably Quintos. But feel free to go in the live chat. Let us know who you want in the post-game show. Good kick over to the far touchline, headed away by FC Wichita.
You know, partner, it certainly would make sense to have Ryan Quintos as the man of the match in this one for us, as that goal was fantastic by him to be able to get up there and have that header go into the back of the net. That was certainly impressive for the number 61 commit in the nation.
The professionalism of the Chicago City team is right on spot. A lot was happening, the red card, but for Chicago to just focus on the issue at hand, get the goal, not think about, did we just get a break? Or should we really be up 11 men to 10? They just focused on the issue at hand, got the job done. Beautiful header by Quintos. Then they answered with another goal, and then got the job done on defense. Very limited opportunities all night for FC Wichita. Really doesn't matter who was between the pipes tonight. Wayman, Flowers, the defense by Chicago City was helping out their goalkeeper.
They absolutely were, and that's more credit to be given to Juan Gutierrez and Matthew Sonatu, as well as Axel Alejandro, who's played a great center defensive mid for Chicago throughout this entire match, getting in front of those passing lanes and not allowing Wichita to have too much room to maneuver.
And Cassie Flowers says Alex Flowers for the post-game show. You could make the argument, I don't know if he's had enough saves, but you could make the argument. He does get credit for the clean sheet, and he's made the saves he's had to.
Absolutely so. He certainly deserves credit, and I know you like to do the 3 stars in the match, and so he would certainly be a top candidate for the 3rd star.
3rd star, 2nd star, probably Franklin, although that was a wonderful pass for the goal. And then Quintos, probably star number 1. More substitutions coming in for Chicago. It'll be Andrew Czech and Justin Darlarge. Oh boy, tough break. He had the ball, did Santos, and he just lost his footing. Mama said there'd be days like this, Mama said, and that's what's happened right now for FC Wichita.
Exactly so, partner. Wichita really wishing that he could have this match back, but really it comes down to being able to keep their composure and really not allow the refs to get in their heads too much and be too aggressive against Chicago, who, in their own right, they've been aggressive and they've been warranted for some of these foul and yellow card calls here. But overall, it's been a clean match for both sides to be able to have this 2-0 score at the moment.
Excellent game played by Cisneros. I mean, you could make the argument that most of the players for both Wichita and Chicago played an excellent game. It's just asking a lot. Was that a handball, by the way? They're going to call the foul. It went off the chest, actually. That's how hard it went off the chest. Usually when you hear that pound noise, it's a hand. But that went off the chest that time with the man coming off the bench in D'Argento. As an ill-advised horn goes off in the 39th minute. We are the official clock, by the way.
The 85th minute, if you will, for the match.
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot to change it to start at 45. I can change it in a second. That's brutal, partner. That could be a red, and it is.
Yeah, it certainly is, partner, and that's definitely a tough call, and it really just poor timing by Juan Gutierrez there. You really can't chalk it up to much else than that. He tried to make an attempt on the ball, but really just got all leg there against FC Wichita. So Now both sides playing with an even number of men here for the remaining 6 minutes of play, in addition to the added time that the refs will have, of course. But really a tough moment there for Wichita, having one of their players get sideswiped almost by Juan Gutierrez.
So we'll put it at the normal soccer rules, where we're in the 84th, 55th. More substitutions coming in. Just an ill-advised play, partner. That was clearly a red card, not necessary at all. The one on the sideline, But I like it.
Exactly.
The officials have been great tonight, very consistent with the calls.
They certainly have, and they know when to stop the play, especially when it's something like that, when it's an egregious moment in which Juan Gutierrez was trying to make an attempt on the ball, but obviously was just caught at the wrong moment and not really having the opportunity to get an interception there. But either way, both sides will continue to play on, and really this has been a very clean match thus far in terms of the officiating and being able to be consistent.
Well, now you can be aggressive if you're Wichita, and you can actually be over-aggressive because you don't have to worry about giving up breakaways now that it's even soccer.
Exactly, and with the strategy that they've employed throughout much of this match, you have to imagine that we've seen some of these midfielders have to turn into some attacking mids to going forward, but another tough tackle made right there in the middle of the pitch.
They're going to play on. Good clean play. It was off the foot of Maibai. Over to the sideline. Played by Alman. Zanola gave up 2 goals tonight, Austin, but 2 of them weren't really his fault.
Not necessarily, partner, and it was certainly wrong place at the wrong time for him in the sense that he was really caught off guard in the way that some of those beautiful passes, the high arcing pass, to be able to get right there and towards the middle for A.J. Franklin in that second goal. But, it's really just a testament to how good these players are for Chicago in their ability to be able to pass accurately and be able to make contact solidly for a header to get in the net.
Out to the sideline. Play to the man off the bench and check. A lot of people contributing. They shut down Warden, the red-hot goal scorer, but they just couldn't maintain the 0 goals given up. Quintos and Franklin both scored. Beautiful passes. Richard Reha also says Alex Flowers, so we're going to think about it. Maybe we'll go with Flowers.
It wouldn't be the worst pick in the world. The Western Illinois Leatherneck played all 17 games for them just last season, having his lowest average of saves per game with 1.82 in that season.
Oh, wow. Look at
obviously,
I was just going to say there was
a bit of a scrimmage over here.
Right, yeah.
On the sideline. Having their own sort of maul over there, but luckily that got cleaned up because the referees might have had to have gotten involved pretty quick had something brewed more.
And that's what makes it tough for a ref is when do you call red? You want to be consistent, but you also want the kids to have fun. You also want to maintain the professionalism. You want to be in charge. You don't want to let the game get away.
And player safety.
Right, right. But a little pushing and shoving, is it yellow cardish? Sure. Is it red card? Probably not.
It depends on how egregious it is, and obviously how much of a side swipe or anything like that might occur for a tough tackle. But
when I think about it, was it a red card? I still don't think so, but when you lead with the foot and not the hands, what we saw on the sideline, it was nothing. That's probably why it was a red. Not necessarily intent to injure, but just the wrong thing to do. If you're going to be angry, a little push. When you lead with the foot with your spikes, no bueno. Out in front, deflected away. Corner kick coming up, just out of time. You'd have to score on this corner. You have to run with the ball, bring it to center court, and then hope you can steal it back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, but FC Wichita is going to have to rely on one of the biggest miracles that could have ever possibly be imagined if they want to even consider getting a draw here in this match. But really, for them overall, they can't really hang their heads too low when they think about this match again, because they played solid throughout that entire first half and just had really two major shots go against them and not really going towards their favor as that one goes offsides against Wichita.
Right. I mean, you're down 2-0. At that point, you're just hoping they're not looking at it and see if you can catch them off guard. But as we found out at Illinois Institute of Technology, this is the wrong pitch to be offside. Peoria City learned that the hard way.
They certainly did. And you know what? Looking back on it, the referees did make the right decision on that one, calling that one offsides. It was just interesting how long that they took to deliberate and ensure without the use of VAR. So clearly they were able to have their judgment call from the line judge that saw it at that moment and made that key call.
That would have been the only blemish for Chicago City this season. They would be 8-0-1 instead of 9-0-0, but they get credit for the win. And if you watch the play again, Wayman actually pointed right away to the refs that he was offside. Then they talked about it. They talked about it. It seemed like forever. And then they changed the call. No goal. And Chicago was undefeated after that night. The win against Des Moines was fantastic. They scored in the 95th minute.
And that just goes to show how much this team loves their late-game theatrics. They somehow get better as the game progresses on, not allowing to be rattled by a 90th minute equalizer from Des Moines and then respond in the absolutely dying moments in the 95th minute to be able to win that one. That's certainly impressive.
What were the good things you saw from FC Wichita today?
You know, you have to like their aggression in their certain attacks that they've had thus far in the match. And, you know, they've chosen their right opportunities to shoot, but they just haven't necessarily been on target throughout this match. And really they've had a very solid defensive moments. Just really some of those crossing passes by Chicago got in front of them at just really the wrong moments for them. And so overall they've had their moments of being able to get in front of those balls and have good defensive effort, but just really not enough offensive firepower for them to be able to find a way to put a score on the board.
And if you're FC Wichita, how do you find ways to get more shots on goal? That's what really hurt them going into the second half. It was a 0-0 draw, but you didn't feel that confident if you were an FC Wichita player because you just weren't able to pepper and pester Flowers enough. And then going into the second half, the red card happened, and then when it rained, it poured for them in the second half.
Well, we saw some of those singular moments in which players were taking the ball down the pitch for Wichita. They didn't really have someone right behind them with a trailing man to be able to pass them off to him and dump it off to have an opportunity to shoot again. And you really would have wanted to see that for them, but they clearly didn't want to go with any sort of tactic like that. And it kind of hurt them at the end to not have enough people, at least on the offensive end of the ball.
It's going to be a fun one on July 12th, the Battle of the Chicagoans here at IIT. There's a lot of Dutch Lions fans that'll be here that would want nothing more than to ruin Chicago City's perfect season.
Absolutely so. Coming all the way over from Aurora, they certainly will be rowdy and causing really a bit of a split scene here at IIT. I have to imagine that they'll bring a decent fan base considering how close that game will be. But no matter what happens in that match, it will be an absolutely electric show between both sides that are very talented.
Has Peoria and FC Wichita, have they shown you ways that you can, here's a chance for Chicago, fakes the pass, oh, what a play by the goalkeeper in Zanalo. Fabulous play.
Absolutely. That was a great moment by him to be able to stay home and not get bitten off the pass and intercept that one, as that ball almost makes it to the train tracks there for the Metro.
If you're wondering for the perfect season to happen, a couple more games for Chicago. They play the Dutch Lions here on the 12th, and they got to go to Wichita on the 15th.
And this team clearly proves that they've had their moments in which they can succeed against this team, but obviously they really had those bad moments in which the ball was able to get crossed in towards the middle of their net. And they'll have to find ways to fix that going into the second game, which could be a bit of a revenge match for them and possibly spoil this perfect season for Chicago City SC later on.
It's just very rare for me to think of a game, especially at the professional level, MLS, Champions League, when the red card happens, when it's a tie score, the team that committed the red card, you just don't think of instances where they win the match. That really did in FC Wichita today.
It certainly did, and obviously Chicago City SC was able to capitalize that almost immediately, being able to score off that crossing pass in towards the middle for Ryan Quintos.
We heard
and
one
so
was
through that, they've really had much success and a lot of momentum after that red card, which obviously that's up to the ref's decision, but either way, Chicago City SC finds another way to win and continue their perfect season, now 10-0-0 on this season.
Impressive, partner. They find all these different ways to win. Controversial calls by the refs, capitalizing on those controversial calls. Great headers, great passes, not playing great in the first half, but making the adjustment in the second half. Finding ways to beat one of the best teams we've ever seen in USL 2 history in Des Moines Menace. They beat them twice. They're 10-0-0 for a reason. Have there been some weaker teams they played? You could make the case for that, but you can only play who's on your schedule. They have 2 more matches, and they could go into the playoffs at 12-0-0. Knock on wood, but they could go 12-0-0 going to the playoffs. The dream season is still live.
It absolutely is, partner, and it's certainly been one to remember thus far for Chicago City SC. And with this win, this almost surely would lock up the #1 seed if St. Charles were to draw or have an outright win against Des Moines, which is obviously no easy task. But if that were to happen, Chicago City SC would almost certainly lock up that #1 seed in the Heartland Division, which has really proven to be quite up and down and tough for any team that's been playing in it. But really, overall, a great win for this team to continue building momentum into a rivalry match on Chicago City SC's home pitch coming up next Wednesday.
I can't wait for it, partner. Get your popcorn ready, butter your popcorn, and come out to IIT on July 12th. Chicago versus Chicago, the Lions versus the Dutch Lions. You can throw out the records into the garbage can. All that matters is who wins that match, and it'll be the battle of Chicagoans. We'll see who comes out on top, but for now, that does it for our play-by-play broadcast. So for our wonderful crew, for Ricardo Bustos, for Sarah, for Antonio, for Rafael Gonzalez, for Austin Wright, I'm Kyle Smith. Coming up, the post-game show. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to let Austin decide who we want for our post-game interview. We appreciate you watching the play-by-play broadcast. Post-game show coming up next on SBS, the broadcasting network for everyone.
Thousands was a weird time for the NBA, a post-Bulls Jordan league that lacked an overall depth and talent, yet was the last premier era of the NBA big man. You had established superstars such as Shaquille O'Neal, Chris Webber, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Alonzo Mourning. You had the up-and-comers such as Kenyon Martin, Marcus Camby, Ben Wallace, Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Tyson Chandler, and Elton Brand. You even had the veteran Hall of Famers on their last leg, such as Akeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Karl Malone, and Dikembe Mutombo. Truly a golden era of big man in every phrase of the word. And the big man we'll be focused on today would likely fit in the early 2000s up-and-comer bracket, Jermaine O'Neal. Drafted 17th overall straight out of high school in the historic 1996 NBA draft class that featured Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, and Steve Nash. O'Neal became the youngest player to ever play in an NBA game at that time. His career lasted 17 seasons, playing for the Trailblazers, Pacers, Raptors, Heat, Celtics, Suns, and Warriors. After joining the Pacers for the 2000-2001 season, O'Neal's career hit an apex that lasted from the 2001-2002 season to the 06-07 campaign. This stretch included 6 straight All-Star appearances, 3 straight All-NBA teams from 2002 to 2004. He was second team in 2004, and a conference finals appearance in 2004. In an era stuffed with centers and power forwards, who ranged from high-quality starters to Hall of Famers, O'Neal was regarded as one of the best in the league during that time. As impressive as he was during his peak, was it enough for him to be considered for the Basketball Hall of Fame? As good as he was as a Pacer, the rest of his career was average at best and arrestable at worst, pun intended. He started in Portland for the 1996-97 season, where he played the next 4 seasons. These Portland teams made the playoffs each season he was there, and even made the conference finals back-to-back years in 99 and 2000. In 2000, they took the Lakers to 7 games, losing 89-84 in the historic game that featured the iconic Kobe to Shaq alley-oop in the closing minutes of the game. By the way, Portland was up by more than 10 points in the game. It was a very successful run for Portland, a run that O'Neal had little to nothing to do with. During his time with the Trailblazers, O'Neal never averaged over 13.5 minutes per game. His most impactful season came in 1998, where he averaged 4.5 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 1 block per game. As underwhelming as O'Neal's career was when he was with Portland, it's hard to place a ton of blame on him for his struggles. In a time where selecting a high school player was still considered a taboo move, he was a teenager playing with grown men. The center and forward positions were especially stacked for Portland, in a roster that featured Arvydas Sabonis, Rasheed Wallace, Scottie Pippen, Detlef Schrempf, and Brian Grant. Unless they're an instant generational talent, it's extremely hard for a young prospect to get playing time for an NBA team contending for a title. You even see this in today's NBA, with the Golden State Warriors still trying to figure out how to fit their younger prospects into the rotation. Hard to hold Jermaine's first 4 seasons against him. After the Pacers went into a mini rebuild parting ways with veterans Mark Jackson, Rick Smits, Chris Mullin, and head coach Larry Bird, they traded for O'Neal in 2000. He was put into their starting unit and instantly made huge strides, posting career highs in every major statistical category other than field goal percentage, which makes sense because he went from taking 3 to 4 shots per game to 10 plus. He would average 12.8 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 2.8 blocks for the 2000-2001 season. His next 6 seasons would be what defined his stardom, as he would team up with future Hall of Famer Reggie Miller and future Defensive Player of the Year Ron Artest. But with an aging Reggie Miller and the unpredictable personality that was Ron Artest, O'Neal ultimately became the best player and most valuable player for the Pacers during this time. He averaged 20.4 points, 9.9 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and 2.4 blocks per game, shooting 45.9% from the field between 2001 to 2007. He also had 39.3 win shares, 25.7 defensive, 13.6 offensive, a plus-minus of 1.7, 1.0 defensive, and 0.8 offensive, and a player efficiency rating of 20.3 in those seasons. To put these stats in context, one player who puts up similar numbers to O'Neal in today's game is Domantas Sabonis. While a much better passer than O'Neal ever was, and not quite the defender, Sabonis has 43.5 win shares, 25.8 offensive and 17.7 defensive, a plus-minus of 2.3, 1.3 offensive and 0.9 defensive, and a player efficiency rating of 19.3. Sabonis just recently finished his 7th season. O'Neal's success on the court translated to the success of the team. The Pacers would win 312 games to 262 games lost and make the playoffs 5 out of 6 possible seasons from 2001 to 2002 to 2006 and 07. His play would get him into 6 straight All-Star games, the 2001 to 2002 Most Improved Player Award, and 3 All-NBA teams. His best season was in 2003 to 2004, where he averaged 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks. He started 78 games that season, made second-team All-NBA, and finished 3rd in MVP voting. The Pacers would go 61-21 that year and make it to the conference finals, where they lost in 6 games to the 2004 NBA champion Detroit Pistons. By 2004, O'Neal was certainly in the conversation with best big men in the league. At that time, that conversation included players like Shaquille O'Neal, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Dirk Nowitzki, 4 players with Hall of Fame resumes, if they're not in already. But it would be the 2004-05 season that would define O'Neal's career, and not in the way anyone would have hoped. The Pacers started off the season hot with a 7-2 start, which would have projected them to finish the season 64-18, 3 wins better than the last season of 61-21. Then, in a game against the Pistons on November 19, 2004, it all came to a crashing halt. The Pacers had a commanding 97-82 lead over their division rival in the closing minute of the road game in Detroit. After a hard foul at the rim on Ben Wallace by Ron Artest, an enraged Wallace came after Artest. Wallace had to be held back by teammates and security for multiple minutes, while Artest was moved by the scoring table, where he started to lay down. As Artest lay down on the scoring table, a fan threw a drink at him, which instigated a brawl that caused Artest and teammate Steven Jackson to run into the stands and throw punches at the fan. This incident was ultimately dubbed Malice at the Palace, a notorious brawl that transcended basketball and changed the landscape of the NBA forever. As some fans eventually started to run onto the court, O'Neal punched a man in the jaw who was running at him. He was subsequently charged with assault and battery for his role in the incident and was sentenced to a year of community service. He was initially suspended 25 games for the incident, but an appeal knocked that down to 15 games. Though O'Neal had a limited/non-instigatory role in the Malice at the Palace, it certainly left a black eye on his legacy as an NBA player. Not something that bodes well for a Hall of Fame case. Once O'Neal got back from a suspension in December of 2004, he was never really the same player. On top of the suspension, he had to miss multiple games during that season with a lingering shoulder injury. He finished that season with 44 games played, and the Pacers finished with a 44-38 record. After beating the Celtics in the first round, they were ironically bounced in the semifinals by the Pistons. While O'Neal was able to make the All-Star team for 3 straight seasons following the Malice at the Palace, his play and ability to stay on the floor started to seriously decline. In his final full season with Indiana in 2007-08, he played in 42 games, starting in 34 of them. He averaged 13.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 2.1 blocks in just 28.7 minutes per game, all sizable drops for the numbers he put up in his prime. 2007-08 was the first season he would make the All-Star team since 2000-2001, and he wouldn't make any more of them for the rest of his career. He was traded to the Raptors in the offseason 2008. By the 2008 All-Star break, O'Neal had missed nearly a quarter of the season and had lost his starting spot to up-and-coming center Andre Bargnani. He would be traded to the Heat later that season and would finish his 41 games in Toronto, averaging 13.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks. His 2009-10 season in Miami would be his last decent season in terms of his health and productivity. He would play 70 games, averaging 13.6 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 1.4 blocks while playing 28.4 minutes per game. A variety of injuries would further plague him for the rest of his career after that season. He played with the Celtics, Suns, and Warriors up until his final season in 2013-14. From 2010 to 2014, he would play 148 games, 51 games started, posting averages of 7.1 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks. For the second half of his career, you could argue O'Neal was nothing more than a role player. Despite the late bloom and sour ending of his career, how did O'Neal compare to the other big man superstars of his generation during his prime? Remember, the Hall of Fame is voted by the sports writers. From 2001 to 2007, the top-tier power forwards and centers were Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Dirk Nowitzki. Here's how O'Neal's stats match up against theirs, as you see the graphic here. From 2002 to 2007, Jermaine O'Neal shot almost 46% from the field, three-point percentage not great at 18.4, and 20.4 points per game, among other notable statistics. Dirk Nowitzki, much better, 24.6 points, 2-point percentage of 49.6, efficient field goal percentage of 51.3. Kevin Garnett, more in points per game, 2-point percentage is better at 50.5, efficient field goal percentage 50.1, free throw percentage much better at 80%. Tim Duncan, 2002 to 2007. Surprisingly, not that much more points per game than Jermaine O'Neal. 21.7 points, 50.8 field goal percentage, efficient field goal percentage of 50.9, total rebounds of 11.8. And Shaquille O'Neal, absolutely dominant. 24.1 points, efficient field goal percentage. This is insane. 58.4, 2.2 blocks, and a field goal percentage of 50.